Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. We're here, and hello, Bruce, hello, Mark, hello, Ian. The first thing we're going to discuss is Ian's, and I don't know why you didn't film it, his Howdy recovery drone. Why didn't you film the incident that took you to A&E?
Well,
Because you've been sat there in front of your cameras.
I would have. I actually was filming, just not
Ooh.
that bit. I was filming under the microscope. But yes, I managed to do the most silliest, smallest injury that resulted in me having to go to A&E about 4 days later. The injury itself is, well, let me just find it, black nail syndrome. So that black spot you can see, it might look, well, it is very minor. But what I managed to actually do is with this lovely soldering iron, I was changing tips for a razor needle sharp.
He's going to do it again.
I know, because this isn't the tip, so I'm not that silly.
Okay.
And I was swapping the tips for basically a needle sharp, very, very small tip. And what I was doing was I was holding it like that with my thumb there, as you can see, which is asking for trouble. And rather than that tip go that way, that went that way and into my thumb. And I managed to push the tip in a good 8 to 10 mil. Unfortunately, it was cold. The iron was hot, but the tip was cold. And it went in and out very quickly. And I thought nothing more of it other than it hurts like hell. It'll be all right in a few days. Well, unfortunately, it wasn't all right in a few days. By about the third or fourth day, my hand started to really hurt. I think by the third day, it started to really hurt, which was the Monday. And then by Tuesday, I'll be honest, I started having all sorts of weird problems with my hand. So I ended up having to go to A&E and get injected with some antibiotics and another the tetanus jab as well, and a couple of other things. So, but it's okay now. It actually doesn't even hurt today. But I'll be honest, the reason I wasn't here last week, I had a meeting, but I was driving home and I was like, I think my hand isn't in a good shape. It was starting to hurt. There was bits. I was at the stage of going, I can't move two of my other fingers. There's something going on now. So, yeah, we think it was infected. That's all.
It's quite
snowflake. What a snowflake. I lost an entire leg one time, but I didn't complain.
I ignored it for 3 days, and then it really started to hurt, and I was like, I better do something about it. The irony is I've really cut myself up very, very badly a number of times, and they always heal quite easily and quickly. It's the
I can't believe you'd be accident prone, lipos.
No, it seems amazing, doesn't it? It just seems amazing that something like that
solder rabies. Yeah, and the problem is I don't know what these tips are made of. They're not copper. They don't appear to be steel.
I think it's infectium.
Yes. Yeah. The doctor sort of looked at me and went, "What's it made of?" And I went, "Not sure. Was it rusty?" And I went, "It certainly was corroded with something." And he was then, "Yeah, you better go to A&E."
So I am just sending a message.
Although I was told something funny in the States. If it'd been in the States, they'd have whipped the fingernail off and had a look at what was going on underneath. You got to love in the UK.
They just charged you for it.
Yeah, and charged me for it. In the UK, they just went, "Yeah, that'll be all right. Take these."
In fact, they'd have given you a complete oil change, all the fluids, belts, and everything in America because they charge you for every little thing. What is it, $25 for an aspirin or something? Yeah.
A friend of mine said, I showed him the picture, and he was like, "Oh," he said to me, "Oh, when you go down, they'll take that fingernail off." And I was like, "No, they won't. I won't do that over here." But it's actually moved because it was higher. The reason I haven't cut the nail is I'm letting it grow so I can see how much it's moving, if you know what I mean, just so I've got a track of how where it was compared to where it is. But it's already moving past the point.
I see a fantastic. Well, it's too late if you haven't started doing a fantastic animation of that on your channel. Perhaps a YouTube.
How not to do? How to? Yeah,
hello, Joseph. Someone did say
I am
delivery.
Quite good at injuring myself in some spectacular ways. I've been always very good at it. I nearly chopped my thumb off one night in the garage walking past my Harley when I had one, and that was one of those situations where I walked.
Jump out to get you, did it?
Can you imagine that? Oh, there's a Harley, I think. I'll cut my thumb off. Oh.
No, I had the heads off. I had an 883, and I had the heads off the Sportster, and I'd been working till like 2 a.m. on it, and I locked the garage, and I forgot my phone. So I opened the door and I sort of shouted across to the phone, because if you've got an iPhone, you can shout, "Hey Siri, where are you?" And it will light up and answer. And I was like, "Oh, it's over there." So rather than reach and actually put the proper light on so I could navigate through the dark garage with the jack sticking out and everything, I walked across, chipped over the jack, and put my hand into the fins of the balls on the Harley, and I nearly removed my thumb on that one. But it healed in a few days.
Was it the same thumb? You could have avoided this injury if you'd only chopped the thumb off last time.
Actually,
Exactly.
it might be the same thumb. I also nearly lost them in a brake disc as well one day, but that's another story.
Just
trying to find Joseph
stop
on
playing. Stop playing with motorbikes and stuff that
It
we're doing.
happens. Things happen. You know, you're not doing stuff properly if you don't cause yourself some serious
but
harm.
all of us have. I mean, I've got loads of cuts here on my thumbs
Yeah.
from balsa bashing. Loads and loads of cuts.
There's a few times you sit back and you go, "Oh, that was a close one," you know, in it. So
no.
Well, this one, yeah, I think I can raise my hand there as well. I've done that one.
No, I can't.
Even the nail, Lewis.
No.
Clipboard, hard hat, high vis, steel cap boots. That would never have happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, Ian, what's the risk assessment for next time you're handling these tips?
The risk assessment.
And have you filed an incident report?
I have filed an incident report. I've spoke to the head of health and safety. And he's given himself a jolly good talking to. He has had words. Yeah, it's one of those random ones. Could have been foreseen. Yeah, could have waited for the iron to cool down. I actually probably need to go and invest in one of the irons. There's some really nice ones like the Hackos and stuff with the tips, Bruce. They just sort of unclip and pop out. The whole cartridge comes out, doesn't it? Basically,
I've got a Hakko, and it's much easier to change the tips. There's no pressure involved. It's just unscrew it and there it goes. Yeah.
I've had these irons for years and they are good, but they're not designed for hot swapping. That's a reality.
And there ends the sermon. Well done, 6.5 minutes talking about your thumb.
We managed to. Any drone news this week, Gary?
It's time to move on to the index finger now.
That's right. This week
no drone news. There can't be any drone news, can there?
So that's why I wasn't here last week. I would have made the live stream if I wasn't standing in A&E.
You need to know. We know we've gone digital.
Oh, very good. Very, very good. Well, I mentioned in the sort of whatever not the comments, the description thing when you said that about more delivery stuff, because today, just before or earlier today, we'd had two sort of drone docking stations, and blow me down if just before we started, I did not get a third one today. So today must be International Release Your Drone Docking Solution Day. I don't know why.
It is. Didn't you get the memo?
I didn't get the memo. No,
oh, okay.
I didn't get the memo. But yet again, and people will ask me, I sound like a president, don't I? People ask me which part of this industry is growing, and I will keep saying the only bit that I can really see growing is the drone delivery business. The
rendering department is growing very fast.
I need to qualify that. Not just the rendering department. That's growing. In fact, we just watched The Big Short, and it reminded me very much of urban air mobility and AAM, depending on what you want to call it. All smoke and mirrors. But yeah, no, the smaller delivery stuff is getting out there and working. And apparently there's some Mavic 3 that's causing people excitement, but that's it. That's what's happening with the industry.
We've just had the first of DJI's triple launch. We've just had the Ronin 4D, which isn't drone related. It'll get strapped to an aircraft at some point, but it's not really drone related. There's tomorrow is believed to be the action camera, which is the number 2. And then I think it's around early November is the Mavic 3. There's not going to be a lot to know about this by the time it comes out, because this has leaked like it's like a dam. Let's just say the amount of water that's involved. If it's all correct, that is, no one knows. This could all be nonsense. But if it is, we've got the full spec, we've got the images, we know what it looks like. The only thing you can't do it is go buy it.
Because no one's got that much money.
Well, I was just going to say, what's the latest rumor on the pricing of that?
I have some official pricing sent to me in the UK. I won't say by who, but I do have been shared some pricing by a dealer, and it is eye-watering in some bits. So let me just find the message, and I will. It has been shared elsewhere, but I will find it just so I know. So in the UK, pricing is looking at, for the base model, we are talking £1,879. For the Fly More on top of that, 2,550. So we're talking £550 more for the Fly More, and I need to have a look at what's included with that, because I didn't actually look, and we've had leaks of that kit today, in fact. But the Cine bundle is looking at just shy of £4,300. Now, there is something to take into account with that. That does include Apple ProRes, and there is licensing involved in that. That is out of DJI's hands. On the Inspire 2, that license was, I need to check, it was either £500 or £800 in itself. So is
that forever or is that annual?
That's forever. So that's a price.
The Ronin 4D also has an Apple ProRes license. In fact, there's two, one for ProRes and one for ProRes RAW. And it's not that much more than the Mavic drone. And I'd say there's a lot more technology and expensive bits in that Ronin 4D than there is in a Mavic 3.
It's a bit more, Bruce. It's about £2,000 more. But what is interesting is the price difference is the hardware. And it just shows where DJI might be trying to swallow some of the cost on this. Although that Cine one is also coming with a smart controller. Then again, that Ronin is like £7,000, I think, the base model. Yeah, it is looking expensive.
And this one's got a proper shutter.
No, it's not mechanical.
It's not a mechanical shutter.
Not according to the paperwork we've seen. Which I'm not surprised at, because they've gone down the road of a bigger sensor, not the same sensor with a mechanical shutter. Now, I've said this and a few people haven't agreed, but I still firmly believe they would have been better sticking with a 1-inch sensor and putting a global mechanical shutter on it and still doing the same processing. The problem with going to the MFT sensor is it's like making computer processors faster. The processor was not the limiting factor in the current Mavic. The limiting factor was the frankly poor processing on board for the image quality, because DJI were removed from using Umbrella and they were using not their own silicon, but someone else's. Now, what I think the biggest news in this, and if all of the rumors is correct, is they have got their own in-house silicon now. And that is actually the bigger news in this, if it's correct. And this is not only there's actually talk of both in-house silicon for the radio chipset, which we've had for some time. That's what's behind OcuSync. And now we may have the first time their in-house silicon for processing. And this has also been mentioned in the Ronin 4D as well. So again, DJI are going more fully integrated. They may not have had a choice being on that ban list in the US. However, it could have explained why we've been so long without product.
A delay,
having to do it. But in the end, if you look at, there's been a few things in DJI's history where things didn't go the way they wanted and they pivoted, and that was the GoPro. Look, the GoPro thing, well, that's not working out. And what do they end up doing? They ended up making their own cameras. In the early days, it wasn't great. However, look at them now. And the same will happen here. And the biggest worry actually isn't for GoPro and them. It's Umbrella, because Umbrella is the biggest silicon provider in the world. And DJI were a very, very large customer of theirs for their SoCs for action and small drone cameras. And if DJI have gone down their own road, that's another big customer they've lost. And GoPro have also moved away from them as well, because GoPro created their own silicon with the release of the 8. I think the GP1 was announced. So I think the product looks interesting, but it's as interesting what's going on inside, if you get my meaning.
Very interesting, Christopher, because there's that energy, and I've had bad experiences with that group. They very much tried to milk us for information and then copied anything we said and all sorts of other things. So I'm interested. I wonder if in the comments, if you would dare to sort of say what the biggest disappointment is, Christopher. That's very interesting.
I'm just looking at the Fly More kit. So the Fly More looks like it comes with 2 extra batteries, which is typical, 3 instead of 2, a charge hub, and a bag. That is a lot of money for 2 extra batteries, a charge hub, and some ND filters.
Yes, you get ND now, don't you, with it?
You're getting ND filters because you won't get them with the standard one. So that you're getting ND filters, you're getting...
But we know how much they charge for batteries these days after the FPV drone, don't we?
Well, yeah. And as you say, Bruce, and again, I suspect these are... I'll throw it out there now. I reckon these could be $250 each or £250 looking at this.
I just at the minute, I don't see why anyone's going to rush to get this. There is rumour it's going to be C1 mark, though, isn't there?
There's rumour, but I'm not convinced any of it will, because the EU have already said they're happy with retrospective.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think DJI can just go, we're not going to worry about that today.
And I can't see why as a commercial operator in the UK, I don't see any reason for me to have this. Because if you've got an Inspire 2, it's not bringing anything major to the game because you've got interchangeable, you've got dual operator with the Inspire 2. You know, if you're doing that kind of work, the Inspire 2 wins. So then it goes against the Mavic 2 Pro.
Yeah.
And I don't...
From a stills point of view, Mark, you're right. That this is going to be no better at stills than a Mavic 2 Pro. So anyone doing stills work, 1-inch sensor versus Micro Four Thirds, they're both 20 megapixel. I think it's going to be really close. I think it's going to be super close. I think what this replaces is the people who might have gone on to buy Inspire 2s, and I think it ends that product. So the guys who have started with a Mavic 2 also want something more. But then again, when it doesn't give you the advantage of multiple lenses, I don't see many people with Inspire 2s. It's not an upgrade. It's the only real upgrade in this is size and flight time.
But if you're on a TV production, it doesn't or film, it doesn't matter. If
it's a weird category, I'll be honest, it does fit in a weird position because they've created this cine model, which is got the smart controller and everything. And look, you were paying £700-800 for that smart controller before. So when you bundle it up, it isn't terrible, the money. It just feels shocking up front. That's the problem because you're paying it all at the same time. But to be fair, I don't understand fully who this is for.
It's going to work very hard to make its money back, isn't it?
Yeah. Especially in stills. Look, 99% of aerial work that's for the average user isn't video, it's stills. Most stuff is stills. And most people are going to be getting away with far different craft. I'm not sure if they've read the market right on this one. Although this could be the end of the Inspire, and it could simply be, you know what, we're going to do this, and then we'll end that platform, and we'll let this run for 2 or 3 years, and perhaps we will never see another Inspire again.
Because it's way out. It's not the sort of thing many people are going to go into Dixon's and buy because they want a new car. It's at that price where you're thinking about it. You definitely about it.
There's going to be the fanboys, so there's going to be like the Apple fanboys, isn't there? But the DJI fanboys, they're going to want it. But when you step back and you go, if someone says to me, "Oh, mapping, do you want to use that for mapping?" I'm going to go, "No, I've got a Phantom 4 Pro. I can't see the benefits this brings to the party." Do you know what I mean?
What does a Phantom 4 Pro RTK cost?
Oh, that's quite expensive. That is a few quid. But here's the more interesting one: A2S, £900.
Yeah,
1-inch sensor, same as the Mavic 2 Pro. If you want a camera for stills, 1-inch sensor, it wins every. Why would you want to spend double on this Mavic? And that's the problem here. That's because the base model does have some very nice specs. There's talk of, let me just get this right, it's high bit rates, very high bit rates on even SD card, let alone SSD. And we shouldn't be using the term SSD. I didn't like it from day one. People saying SSD. It's not an SSD. It's got built-in 1 terabyte of storage. It's an SSD if it's removable. It's not an SSD. It's just storage.
Tell that to Apple. Their SSDs aren't removable on some models.
Well, do they actually call them SSDs anymore?
Yes.
They still do, don't they? Yeah. But what we're looking at is on SD cards. So the basic version is going to do H.264, H.265, and either H.264 at 200 megs a second, which is something I've said for ages we should be seeing, and then 265 at 140, which I find interesting. So there's a reduced bit rate on HEVC, which doesn't make
because you don't need the same bit rate. It's a better
you
codec.
shouldn't need it, but I would rather have that at 200 megs than H.264, if you get my meaning, Bruce, because you'd get even more out of it. And then it'll do ProRes 422 HQ at 5.1K, according to this spec, up to 50 frames a second, which is
So
huge.
what does Mr. Hello, Jesper. Hello, Norway. Hello, Norway. And the votes from Norway, please. But what does the TV producer say to that? Does he say that's something I like? Is that numbers that they understand, the professional TV world?
The only thing I do wonder is if they're going to go after the disposal. Look, $4,000, $3,500 is pennies for some of these things, and you could get them conceivably sell 10 of these to a film crew who's going somewhere across, on the likes of not Top Gear, but the Grand Tour and stuff. 15 of them on a trip, right? And they'll just destroy them. And I do wonder if they're trying to pack as much in for as little as possible and go down that route.
They pay more than that just to hire a cine camera for a day. And the interesting thing is, does this constitute a kind of a pivot? You were talking about pivoting before. Is DJI perhaps sort of had enough of the US government saying you can't, we're not going to buy your stuff and you're persona non grata? Are they maybe saying, well, blow you guys, we're going to pivot more into the camera market, we're going to leverage our Hasselblad investment and go, we're going to become the camera company. We've got our own silicon. We've got this Ronin 4D. We're making the Mavic 3 a disposable cine drone for filmmakers. And we're not that much interested in the rest of the market anymore because you're locking us out of it anyway.
Yeah. I do wonder what their plan is, because, the Ronin 4D, I knew about that 4.5 years ago. I'll openly say now, I was actually involved in very early development or talks on it. I was part of a group of people when I ran their groups, and there was about 8 of us, and they've all come out and said the same thing. I've known about that product forever. I never imagined it would ever come to light because it just felt like it was never going to happen. I've got images on my phone that were from 3 years ago that are really similar, and it's interesting how little for me has changed in that period. They really got the base design very early on, and they've tweaked it, but it isn't hugely different. And I never forget, one of the impressive things I remember back then was there was talk, and they showed drawings, and in like a month and a half they had a full mock-up, and I was like working. And I was that's how quick their development was. It was incredible how quick they were moving forward. But I think the 4D was held back because of the market. I think 2 years, the film industry stopped for 2 years, 18 months as a result of COVID. So I think they sort of sat there and went, there's no way in hell we're going to launch it now. And they've not even launched it. They're expressing interest. This product could still never get out. If not enough people want it, it could vanish.
I think a lot of people wonder, have you looked at the Blackmagic Design website, the cinematography forum there, where there's so many people who are professional cinematographers saying, this is a fantastic product. This is brilliant. This is what we want. We don't have to hire, use our Ronin with a hired camera and all the overheads and so forth. It's actually cheaper to buy the Ronin 4D with its remote control setup than just to buy the remote control for focus for the ARRI. And that's the massive price differential. And the camera seems to be good performance. It's got everything you want for a cinematography. It takes a number of different lens types with the adapters. It ticks a lot of boxes, and I think they would do very well if they launched it. But can they launch it at this price point and make a profit?
And
do they have to?
Will it be buggy as hell? And I've said this, and I said it on the open forum. This is not the market that will tolerate it crashing and losing footage or playing up halfway through the day. And DJI are the best at delivering outstanding products eventually. And often it works really well out the door. But watch for two things coming soon. And they are the guys who bought the Inspire 2 are still waiting for the coming soon ground station over 5 years ago. And look in the middle for the detail with the bits they don't say. And I already spotted something. You know, they made a big fuss about it taking 3 different kinds of media. It'll take compact CF fast, it'll take DJI proprietary SSD, and it will take a standard SSD. However, you only get the full features on the DJI SSD. So again,
that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter, because look at the Red ecosystem. You've got to buy Red everything to use a Red camera. They're just playing to the market, and they probably see that as a really good market to be in, because once companies align themselves with a particular brand, they'll spend whatever money is required to buy the official, the actual manufacturer's products, or accessories and so forth to back it up. So it's a very lucrative market.
Something I did see, and is sort of on the 4D, because it's not drone related, but 3 things. There was only 8 reviews. And I know one that still hasn't come out, which is Philip Bloom. We're waiting for his. And all of them mentioned they didn't have manuals and they didn't have a lot of time with it. And the real funny one for me was the end of Peter McKinnon's video. If you watch it, he found a piece of film on the glass, the protection film, and he'd done all his footage.
What a professional. He's like me. He never takes the plastic off his lenses or his LCDs or the seats of his car.
No, I don't do that.
What that tells me is these guys didn't have a lot of time. They were and look, I've been there. I've had this before. Product delivers on Monday. They want you to talk about it Wednesday, and it ain't going to cut it with that stuff. These guys didn't even have manuals.
But having said that, the fact that they were able to use them, get some really impressive results without the manual, shows that it's a pretty well-designed bit of kit that seems to work intuitively. And that's quite important when you've got people trying to get the most out of every hour because they're charging so much for their time.
It has blown me, when you look at it, it's hard not to be blown away. I'd love to have a play with it. There's some stuff in there. I could see some of the DNA from like 3 years ago in the talks we had, especially around the focus wheel. The arms coming off was something we discussed very early doors on it as part of the team. And they have really done an outstanding job. What will let them down isn't the product. The product will be great. What will let them down is if they've had enough time, this should be perfect. All this needs to do is just be reliable out the door, and they will go very well.
If you look at it, it uses a lot of their existing technology. That fourth axis with the optical system for judging the distance of the ground, the optical flow, basically. A lot of the technology, all the gyros, it's from their drone technology. They've just moved all that cool stuff into a camera, so they don't have to learn a lot. They've already got the technology there. It's just been adapted for the purpose of cinematography, and that's why I think it could be a lot more reliable than some people might think.
But how big is this market? I don't want one. It's a huge market.
The thing is, your problem is hire a Red or buy a Red. Something really interesting this week, actually, on the camera side. Linus went out and bought a scary number of Blackmagic cameras about 6 months ago. And we're talking, 100,000. And he's dumped them all now and he's going back to Sony. Because it hasn't worked out for them. And he's moved around Reds. He's got all of them, and he's going back to the FX series. But when you listen to the numbers, even at the 8K version of this, it's like 12,500, 13,000. It's
pounds, dollars.
Yeah, dollars. It's pennies compared to some of these big cameras. Honestly, it is absolute pennies. So
the only thing to 1. The only thing I'm pretty sure you won't see is movies made in airports, because when you get within a certain distance of an airport, it won't let you film.
Yeah.
Well, it'll end up being down to like directors a lot of time, or DOPs, because they'll go, we want this camera. We want a Red. I want a Red, and then I want this lens on it, and that's it. That's where it'll be. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's bound to be YouTubers that are going to have it, and there'll be DJI people that have to have it. But DOPs
it's going to be, if they get on the Netflix approved list, that will make a huge difference.
Yeah. Once
Because Netflix approves the type of gear you use.
Huge. That would, if they can get it on Netflix to prove it, because Panasonic did that with the S1H and the S5 now, and that was very big for them. That was really big for them. Just give you an idea, a Sony FX9 is £12,000 as the bare body, and you can at least double that in anything you want to stick on it. That's just the bare body, nothing else, no lenses.
But
nothing.
to buy this thing, you've got to be. You're not going to be doing your vlogging with it. You're not going to be walking around.
No,
Yeah.
People will.
I'll vlog with it.
Yeah, but no, I'm trying to get at is you've got to have a story to get the Phantom 3 or whatever camera drone. Oh, that's interesting. I take a picture from the sky. That's new and unusual. That's like a bit quirky, etc., etc., etc. But to buy, so I can see the appeal of that. Maybe I am biased, but this machine, you need to actually be thinking about what you're producing when you're making your videos. It has to be
But we live in a video-centric world. We live in the world of YouTube and Facebook where everything is video focused. And if you look at the number of people that have spent huge amounts of money on mirrorless or DSLR cameras for hobby purposes, this is only just a little bit more in terms once you kit out those other cameras with a gimbal and so forth, this is not much more, and it offers so much more straight out of the box.
It's going to be interesting because you've got like 6 or 7 people who sort of talk pro video on YouTube are believed to be in it. Like, for instance, you've got likes of Potato Jet, if anyone's ever come across him, who seems to have unlimited amounts of money for camera gear. They'll do a video with 200 or 300 Ks worth of camera just to show you how it works and stuff. And these guys are clearly driving that somewhere. They can't just be YouTubers. You got Cine D, who are professionals, and a couple of others. Most YouTubers are on sort of 5 to 6K cameras, the bigger YouTubers, but they're using 5 or 6 of the Sonys, A7R4s, stuff like that. This isn't, and that's without glass. It isn't much of a stretch further from that, as Bruce says. It won't get a lot of use on those kind of people. The key for this product is action movies and almost disposable action in movies. They can strap it on the front of a car in a crash and get the footage and stuff like that. That's, I think, where they'll get it. Most YouTubers aren't going to run around with that. They just won't do it.
Yeah, there's a lot of ad agencies, production companies that do ads, and a lot of companies that do real estate filming, all that sort of stuff where you want a nice stabilized image with good bokeh and lots of that. There's a surprisingly large number of small players who will be able to afford this thing and make it a part of their everyday use.
Just typing out this link by hand to see what it is, because I can't connect to it.
Ian can't type by hand. His is injured.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as for the Mark 3, I think, pivoting to that, I do wonder. This is the super interesting launch for this will be with, let's see how many they've seeded into people's hands, so we'll know how many have gone into review hands. So you're going to have all the usual suspects. You're going to have iPhonedo, you're going to have iJustine. Be interested to see if Casey Neistat creeps out the woodwork, because he's pretty much been off this stuff completely. But you'll have all of the tech channels. I've already seen 2 channels reappear who have been doing nothing for a year, almost zero, and suddenly started posting videos and live streaming last week on the build up to the launch. Makes you wonder who's paying for that. I'll just leave that there. But it'll be interesting to see how many reviews this time, how many they've seeded, and how many of these reviews are independent. And that will be the interest, because no one can be independent up front, because you have to get it from DJI. But it will be interesting. I've had some discussions with dealers. I hopefully will be able to get my hands on one to borrow for to give my thoughts. I won't be able to buy one, not at this money. I'm not comfortable buying the basic model. For me, it's pointless, frankly. If I bought one, it would have to replace my Inspire 2.
Interesting about that camera, I go back to the Ronin 4D. One of the cool features is that if you're a vlogger or you're a YouTuber, it has a really powerful feature. You can set it on a tripod and it will track you as you walk around. So it's like having a cameraman for free.
The Ronin will do that, man. The RS2 will do that. You can just use the gimbal for that, yeah.
So I'm preparing my because what's really making me laugh about this Mavic 3 is the spurious articles coming out about it. So I need to prepare my aerodynamic arms and all the other leading with. I don't think I've seen one. Two things as much in posts with really not that great a deal of a reaction from the world out there. And even more, I was surprised how blow all reaction there was to the FCC with DJI in America. And as we continually say, aviation regulators are one thing, but once your radio regulator gets on board, then watch out. And there's not been a lot of that. I think they nicely batted a little bit about that out of the way with the gimbal or this camera. I didn't get the link to it, Jesper. I'll have to look at it afterwards, or perhaps you can describe it in the comments. So yeah, it's they're not. What I'm trying to say is, other than the noise they're generating, there's not a lot of interest in it.
Problem is though, this FCC thing, this is like the 5th time we've had all of this now. Do you know what I mean? We've had leaks that the army want it banned, which wasn't true. You know, I put a post out somewhere like, I do not agree under any circumstances DJI should be banned. I've seen no evidence to suggest DJI should be banned any more than any other Chinese company. It is nothing more than political targeting, because if you're going to target DJI, then you need to say that's fine, but we're no longer going to let Foxconn and all these other large companies make our cheap electronics. What you can't do is sit there and say, we're happy to let you be our slave labor when it suits us and make all our laptops, our phones, and our TVs. Yet when you suddenly develop a brand that DJI is, and look, they have created an industry. They are the biggest player. There is still no real evidence to this day that they are spying on you and stealing your data. And, you know, they're not uploading your video footage the second you go near the internet. So if you're going to ban, you have to say, then we don't agree with any of it. And there is an argument that people say, and I'll hit it head on now, which is, yeah, but it's Chinese software. That's nonsense. If they wanted to bury something in a HP laptop, there's always ways. There's always ways of doing it. So we've either got to cut ourselves off and say we don't agree with any of it, or you accept that this is political maneuvering because they simply want to hit a big name. And DJI is a big one.
Since when has government decision been evidence-based?
Well, yes. I think we all know that, don't we, Bruce?
Here's a question for you then. Because China has been rather forcefully wording its intentions towards a certain island near it that it wants to reunify with.
We signed it over. What did we think was going to happen 20 years ago?
Not Hong Kong.
Not Hong Kong. Not
Taiwan.
Hong Kong.
Taiwan.
Taiwan. Well, look.
If they take that, what can you see the rest of the world going? We're going to stop buying from China because we can't do it.
No, they will jump up and down, right? People will say that's not right. The US has put a fair amount of military in. Look, they've openly said for 10 years reunification is what's on the table. That's it. It's inevitable. We might not agree with it, but what we can't do is sit on our high horses all of the time and say they're bad and we're good. Okay, we wrote the rule book on doing bad things in the West. You know, we've spied, we've done all of this stuff. So we like to sit here and think we are better than everyone else. We're not. And
I am.
Bruce,
speak for yourself.
So, no, I don't agree for 1 second they should be banned. There's no merit in it. It is wrong, and it shouldn't be allowed to happen.
I don't believe a lot of the rhetoric from the USA when it comes to criticizing foreign regimes. I've just been tracking, and the number of times I've heard from US sources that in North Korea, some general or something's fallen out of favor. He's been lined up against a wall and eviscerated with an anti-aircraft gun or something. Then he turns up 2 months later, fine and healthy. So what's going on?
I think the more interesting one is the bloke from the FCC's jumping up and down, throwing his toys out the cot, but hasn't actually done anything. If you're that worried... If you're that worried about it, you don't have a hissy fit in a press release. You do it.
Yeah,
know.
and that's been the case a few times now. We
Do we need China? Yeah, we do. Bottom
yeah,
line.
frankly,
It's all saber
Yeah,
rattling.
yeah.
It's saber rattling. China's doing it. The US is doing it. They're all rattling their sabers. Make a big noise. Look at me. Woohoo! Just get on with the business of doing things, will you?
you know, we can argue all day
Yeah.
long. At the end of the day, targeting DJI does not change anything. And that's my whole point on it. Targeting DJI directly, it is simply targeting a big name that is well known. And they did the first big name. That was Huawei. That was the first biggest name there was they could go for. Now it's DJI. But I don't think it'll.
I'd like to see the money trail. I bet you there's someone in the background paying somebody to target DJI because it's a competitor to DJI that is well connected politically and has a little bit of funding, and some senators getting free holidays in the Bahamas. That's the way politics works these days. It's undeniable.
All you got to do is watch. All you got to do is start watching Lewis Rossman's fight for right to repair, Bruce, as you said. And once you start going down that rabbit hole of the lobbying, it's just, as you say, follow the money, because that's the reality of it, you know.
Yeah, it's scary, isn't it?
It is.
I'm not scared. You're just a snowflake.
I'm looking at Fleetonomy right now. Right. Okay.
I don't think it'll ever happen. I'm still not convinced it will ever happen. If they were going to do it, they were going to do it 2 years ago when they stuck them on the entities list.
Yeah.
Well,
because that was the point.
Here's the thing. It's a DJI, like I say, no one else can produce like they do. You know, it's a great bit of kit, it's simple, and it just works. You know, that's hard to beat. You know, where's the American version? Where is it?
And let's just look in the news today about, you've got it right now. Look at all of the talk around social media companies. I'm not going to name them, but look, let's not pretend that everything
way
everywhere
worse,
else
isn't
is
it?
brilliant. Yeah, and
It's
it really
way
is.
worse.
It's scary. It's scary. So I hope it doesn't happen. I don't agree with it. You know, DJI are not, they have their faults, but I have never agreed that they're sitting there stealing everyone's data, and you know, they are still the gorilla in the industry, the most innovative one of the most innovative companies on the planet right now. There's no question about that. There's very few pushing things forward like they are in many different ways. Like Bruce has said about the Ronin 4D, you know, I've been quite hard on it, but it is still extremely innovative. It is completely different to anything the likes of Sony, Canon, Panasonic, and any of them are doing. And the camera industry has been stale for 4 or 5 years. You know, the camera industry likes going, let's have another 5 megapixel. Let's give you a few more buttons. Let's change the lens mount every 10 years to make you buy all new lenses. And what DJI have done is what they do with the drone industry is kick the doors open and go, we're going to jump 5-10 years.
I wonder if it'll make a few of the others pay a bit more attention. So, like Red and Arri, they're going to have to step up their game.
No, they don't need to. They've got a captive market. It'll be a while before DJI muscles its way in. More worried should be people like Blackmagic, who are dealing with the bottom of the market. And for the price of a Blackmagic pocket camera 8K, you can pick up with a little bit more money something that's really, in terms of actual use, is a lot more practical.
And it's not good you're hearing people like Linus not end up being able to use it. It just doesn't suit. You know, the reason Linus is a very large media entity in the sense of what he does on YouTube. They are a production company. They're not just a YouTube channel. They are a production company, and they use 10, 15, 20 cameras. And his reasons for moving was they couldn't make the workflow work for them. And that is worrying, because that is the problems. It's not the cameras was the issue. It was the Blackmagic workflow wasn't working for them. And that's a big problem for people.
Oh, I'm sure they're pivoting to cars, sensors, and things like that as well.
I agree.
There's loads of other electronics.
Hell, I would be shocked if they built a car.
Well, to be honest, let's face it. Right now, there's cars in America, they can't even get sensors for them, can they? So they're not coming with reversing sensors or this, that, and the other, or lane keeping sensors, because there's no chips.
If DJI built cars, if they built EVs, would they not be allowed to drive near critical infrastructure for fear that they'd be capturing pictures? This whole thing is just crazy, isn't it?
And Tesla, you can drive a Tesla next to it. We know there's how many cameras on board. It's
crazy.
You know,
and they do suck up all the data, because Teslas do suck up all the data, because Tesla even admit to it. They go, look, our cars, when it's parked up at night, sends all the data back to the main servers.
And they refuse to give anyone access to it without special permission because it's just been hacked in Germany. I think it's either Germany or one of the others. They've openly this week said they've reversed Tesla's log format because up to now, there's been a lot of concerns around, especially crashes around autopilot, that Tesla were providing the data saying, yes, that was nothing to do with us, but they were providing the specifics. This is it. Data can be manipulated, but it's also out of context can look completely different. Whereas someone now one of the government agencies, has reversed Tesla's log format. It's not like, as I said, it's not like everyone else plays complete ball, is it?
No.
And Tesla, they have their server farm, and it just all goes to the server farm and sits there because they say they've got data. And every other automaker that's doing self-driving, they'll all acknowledge they can't touch Teslas for the data set because it's just huge. From 2014, if that car's driven past that junction for the past 10 years, they just keep getting an update of the junction and how it's changed and the best way to go around it and everything. It's just astounding. It's just,
there's big data problem to crunch. So, like the Predators and Reapers, they I can't remember the percentage now, but they use hardly anything in reality of what they've captured. But they've stored it on 1 gajillion floppy disks down the shed, in the shed in the cupboard at the back of the shed.
There was a very interesting video from Deutsche Welle DWTV about China and their surveillance thing. And apparently every major town has a large building which exists solely to archive data from all the cameras, and it runs AI, and they have this like little system where everyone is being watched all the time, and mostly the AI filters out all the boring stuff. But when someone, for instance, just does a bit of fly tipping, it rings an alarm, calls the team, they go out and deal with them. It's like, it's such a surveillance society. And of course, they've got this capability, and the more data they've got, the better it gets. So they're probably looking for good sources of data. And you can bet that the USA is doing something similar. They're just not telling people. Ask Ed Snowden, he'll tell you.
And that's the funny thing, isn't it? That's the funny thing. There's a difference. But, I made that exact point on the post I put up. Don't think for 1 minute we're not doing it. We're just not telling you. And that's the difference between us. Someone put a reply to my post saying, but the Chinese if the Chinese government asks, you must hand over the data. And I just went, and in the West, the government won't ask. They'll just take it.
That's true.
Investigate the powers of the Homeland Security Act. I mean, it's just that basically you got no power. Your constitutional rights are out the door because the Homeland Security usurps everything, as Race Day Quads have found with the remote ID thing. It's national security. The Constitution does not apply.
That's it. That's safety and security. That's the trump card every single time. I don't mean that Trump. I mean just trump cards.
So we have AI tracking here now, don't we? It does exist in the UK. It does in
London.
places.
Driving the wrong place in London, you'll be done in 10.5 seconds.
You had the fantastic one in Bath, didn't you? With the lady with the people picked up the ticket for their car driving over a bridge in Bath, and it was actually the writing on a woman's jumper. She was walking in the bus lane, and it was that picked up the wording on her jumper and sent off a fine to somebody. Works every time.
It's look, I hope it doesn't happen. We'll have to see. I'm not convinced. I think it's all posturing. It'll continue for some time. Certainly it's not going to happen anytime soon. We've got the launch of the little camera to come first. That's tomorrow, which is again leaked. I'm not sure why we're seeing all these leaks because there's no excitement.
It's cheap advertising.
Because you live in Wales, man.
There is that, Bruce. But we got the little camera tomorrow, which the FPV community's been quite excited about. But I think that excitement's getting a bit more muted now. Now it's like a MacBook. Because it's made from aluminium, and that raises some concerns because the second you ping the side, it's got edge-to-edge glass on the back and made from aluminium. That's not going to do well, Bruce, in a crash, is it?
What's a crash? I don't think I've experienced one of those. But the price also is outrageous. You notice that DJI is making the cheap stuff dearer and the dear stuff cheaper.
I think they're showing how much expense it is because there's been talk this week of don't try to buy any more STM32s. STM32s are even more in shortage because now everyone's buying them up. So not only has there been a limited supply, but there's been some very big orders placed. I think everything's going to go up. I think DJI are at the beginning of it.
Well, I don't know if you saw a report. Interesting, the car manufacturers that got, because they caught themselves out, didn't they? The car manufacturers basically they cancelled their chip run and let it go to another sector, if you like, because they thought, no cars we sold during these COVID times. Tesla, they kept their chip count going, but they've switched chips, haven't they? They rewrote their own code
they
so they could swap, and everyone else has gone. Everyone else is going, how the we can't get chips. How are you doing this?
Yeah,
it's really interesting. The chip shortage it's compounding issues. But all car prices are going. All electronic prices are going up because of this chip shortage. It's on the ramp.
It's funny. There's a cracking article I read about the car industry, and it's all related to the chip shortage. But they were talking about how Tesla is the only one really making progress because they don't have 30 years of legacy behind them. So every car manufacturer right now, even just to pivot to EV, they've still got to support any car they're selling today for the next 20 years. And Tesla just doesn't have that problem. Anything they do, they've got to support the car for the last 5 years. And the car industry just can't pivot as quick as Tesla can. They just cannot do it. There was a cracking article on margins, and they were talking about, I think Mercedes-Benz margin is 23% on their best vehicles, and sort of Ford to GM is somewhere between 7 and 12. But the real key is the dealer margin, and this is something DJI have done, which is gone direct, and Tesla's gone direct for the most part as well. And they were talking, for instance, I think Mercedes-Benz allocate 8% margin for a sale of the 23. 8% of that goes to dealers. Tesla's is 0.4% of the 30% margin they're making, and that's because they're selling direct. And DJI doing the same. All of these launches are DJI direct. We don't know when dealers are going to get them, so that money is going straight into the master pockets, not into the dealers. Because the whispers are this Mavic 3 launch is dealer direct only. Sorry, DJI direct only initially.
It's
Well, no, they can't get hold of the chips. It doesn't matter. They can't get hold of basic chips for their cars, regardless. The supply isn't there. They're just not being made. Be them old or be them new, it doesn't matter.
And the whole thing is the internet has changed the whole marketplace. Middlemen are no longer necessary. That's why China's doing so well, selling direct from AliExpress and things. You don't need someone sitting down the corner of the street to buy stuff anymore. When Tesla want you to buy a car, you go online, put your credit card, click it in, and it comes in the post.
It's funny you say about AliExpress. I've not used them a lot ever. I used to get a lot of problems, so I stopped. However, I've done 4 orders in the last 2 months, and they've all been like clockwork. I've not even had to pay the VAT coming in because they've handled it allegedly for me. And yeah, it's getting a lot easier to do that now.
I think the Chinese shot all the bad vendors that they charge them for the bullet. But I read the American propaganda. They shot them, lined them up, and shot them all. Xi Jinping did it himself.
It's going to be interesting. Look, China's though still on reduced output. We are struggling on product. It's hitting FPV. One of the FPV camera manufacturers told me they were down to 30% output of what they're allowed because of the power shortages, and that's
power shortages.
The coal shortage.
Oh yes,
they had a bit of a spike with Australia. Remember, when Australia went with the US and the UK, and then so they said we're not going to buy any of your coal because you're mean to us. You're siding with the enemy. But then they realised, oh my goodness, we need their coal because we can't produce enough power. So they're buying it again now. But it's politics. Yeah, because these people are so stupid.
Didn't they have a spat over lobsters or something as well? Bit overfishing as well with Australia and China. Wasn't
no idea.
It started back then somewhere a few months
There's
ago.
always a spat over something. There's always a spat.
You're thinking sprat. If it's fisheries, you're thinking sprat.
Sprat. But no, so we're going to have shortages of stuff. It doesn't help the likes of Apple have swallowed production of a lot of stuff for periods of time. DJI have obviously secured their supply chain because we got new products.
Well, Apple dropped their new phone numbers by 10 million units, didn't they?
How many they're expecting to sell?
Yeah, no, to actually produce. They're dropping 10 million. That's not a drop in the ocean, is it?
No.
What a dystopian future we face.
Even NVIDIA.
Yes.
NVIDIA have said another 2 years before we get out of this. I think it is NVIDIA or AMD.
That's what everyone's saying.
As he tripped over the big bag of cash in front of him that he pulled out to give the British government, did thing. But yeah, they've said 2 years.
Well, going back to the cars again, so Daimler and Ford, they did turn around and say, this chip shortage is actually helping us because we'll sell more premium cars. So they actually make sure the premium models, the ones they get the best profit for, they make sure those are fully kitted out. Those cars, they can sell them. The others, they just kind of built them and just, we'll leave them over there for now. We'll just wait for the chips to arrive kind of thing, because they're making more money on the more expensive stuff. So Ford and Daimler, they've never made such profits before. And it looks like they may just turn around and go, we're not going to go back to the old ways of doing this. We might just go with the new way where we'll make just enough for the market's demand. We won't.
So what are Reliant going to do? They don't make any top end product.
Well, let's try and steer the conversation back to the world of unmanned aircraft, FPV, and other stuff. Then, shall we?
Let's disappoint the audience again.
Yes, indeed. Well, yeah, really, because other than the delivery drone stuff, there's nothing this week.
The Jetson. Really... Don't forget the Jetson.
Oh God.
Yes. There has been the release of the Pixhawk 5 as well.
Oh yes, the CUAV thing, and that's got networking on it, hasn't it?
Ethernet, yeah. So it has been released. I haven't seen it. It's not the kind of board I'd buy in to check. It's part of obviously the Pixhawk specification. The big key is it's got Ethernet, and the reason a lot of drone builders want Ethernet is because you can run multiple different protocols over Ethernet. So we've got, for instance, we've got SPI, we've got CAN, I2C, UART. The nice thing with Ethernet is you can run any of those protocols over Ethernet within itself. So rather than have all of these different protocols and all of these different buses, they can use Ethernet between. But I still struggle with this because I'm sure this was like a £300 flight controller, I think it was. But the kind of people who want Ethernet aren't buying £300 flight controllers that can't be used in anything else. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of very high-end drones using the Cube, and they are very interested in having Ethernet, and I'm sure Philip will do something on that as soon as he possibly can. But yeah, I do wonder on like cheap Chinese controllers adding stuff, but then again, a lot of it's used for development as well, I think.
This happened as well.
Yes, it did. I haven't covered this yet neither.
Yeah, well, best you do then. Hurry up, send the video.
Has there been any hoo-ha about this yet?
Yeah.
Okay, I was waiting for it, but I hadn't seen it, basically.
Yeah. There's been not much hoo-ha, just some gentle background who with very little bit of ha. Noses are out of joint and things like that.
Well, I would guess they are at UAV CAN. For those who don't know why this has happened, so you had UAV CAN specification, which was all running fine. They created UAV CAN and everyone was happy, and it was introduced into Ardra Pilot and it was bumbling along nicely. And then the people at UAV CAN decided there was a few things they weren't happy with in the protocol that were fundamental, and they went and changed them. Those changes don't particularly work well for existing hardware, stuff that's already in the market, and it doesn't really suit what a lot of this hardware is already doing or the plans. So it's been bumbling along as UAV CAN 0.9 and UAV CAN 1 for quite some time. And because it's open source, it appears to me that a group of people have split off UAV CAN 0.9 into, what is this called again, Gary? I've forgotten what it's actually called. Drone CAN, yes. So it has basically been split off as a separate project.
Fork me.
Drone CAN.
Yes,
exactly. Without, I'm guessing, the people behind UAV CAN fully being involved. I'm guessing they weren't particularly happy with.
Seems right. Seems a fair assumption.
And that's just a guess because I haven't looked into this, but I was fully aware of sort of the lead up to this and some of the stuff. So Ardra Pilot has pegged their bets behind Drone CAN. I did see that. because that's what Ardra Pilot's been using, and they will continue to support UAV CAN 1 as well, I think they said. But this is to secure the future of what was UAV CAN 0.9.
And it's Ardra Pilot and PX4 are supporting.
I noticed PX4 as well, and I'm surprised at that because PX4 were heavily behind UAV CAN and the move to 1.0, I thought, but perhaps it wasn't such a harmonious move.
Can't we just be happy with PSTN?
Yes.
I think part of it was as well, UAV CAN didn't want to be limited to UAV aspects, and a lot of the changes in 1.0 were to allow a lot of other stuff outside of drones as well, in other autonomous vehicles and other stuff like that. But I do know there was a lot of hoo-ha around UAV CAN 0.9 being ended.
Yeah. So that was quite interesting. So that's an interesting thing that's happened this week. But other than that, really, it's not that has not been that exciting out there. But then, we're running up to Christmas. It's getting traditional. This is the low season for our things.
I'm doing my best to foment dissent and debate and discussion and anger, but it is a slow week.
Yes. It is a slow week. And now I've forgotten what your I'm ashamed as I was.
I'm so forgettable. I forgot myself.
I forgot what you're...
Just ragging on the FAA again.
The FAA.
Yeah, just ragging on them again. And the fact they keep spewing out the same old lies.
Yes, that interview was very you just don't bring them on and talk to them because you're not going to get anything sensible out of them. And I didn't really like UK news of the I've forgotten the name of the guy from the CAA talking on Breakfast TV.
Sean.
No, it's a CAA guy who was on Breakfast TV in the UK
TV.
Talking about their...
Is that still a thing, TV?
Yeah, it is. Their photo competition that the CAA's put up, and he used the fantastic Gatwick example as ever. We've all got to...
What happened to Gatwick? Did we miss something?
The aeroplanes going in and out. No, he just said, everyone's got to behave because, just look at what happened at Gatwick.
Was that Jonathan? Was that Jonathan?
Yes. Yes.
Jonathan, yeah, I've got a good mind to put a complaint in then because, unless they can prove there was a drone, they need to stop that rhetoric. There's enough evidence now that the CA should know better, and everyone at the CA should know better. All of them.
Yeah.
Well, we can use this against regulators. If they continuously roll out misinformation, then it challenges their credibility in every area of their involvement.
But at what point can we actually? What point can we actually say? Well, we know there's no evidence because there wasn't anything there. But that's what we know to be
because it needs to be evidence-based regulation, evidence in the form of risk assessments, evidence in the form of facts to back up the assertions. If we go to them and we go to any government department and make an assertion, we have to back it up with facts before we believe. Why is the converse not appropriate?
Yeah, and there's
there.
I mean, I was with a client 3 weeks ago, and they said, Gatwick, how do we legislate against it? I says, you can't legislate against someone using a phone incorrectly. Just picking it up and making that call. How do you legislate against that? I says, you can't. And they were like, what do you mean? I says, well, there's no drone. And there's enough evidence now to say there wasn't. There really is. There's enough evidence to say it was never there. And
we are innocent until proven guilty.
And the problem is, if the CAA are going to keep going around saying that on national TV, they need to knock it off. And don't get me wrong, I do not want the CAA to come to me and go, look, you. But, it's not good. And I might just have to drop an email to the CAA inquiries email just to go, look, please, do not say Gatwick on live TV unless you can prove it, because you can't.
Yeah. Yeah, it keeps running. It's a gift that keeps giving for the counter UAS market, isn't it? It
is, and it's so frustrating, because it's there to promote drone safety, which is I saw their Twitter feed. I don't know if I think you guys may have seen that, where they did it on Twitter, and I went, look, Cap 722 has been out for over 21 years now. No deaths from a multi-rotor. That's got to be the best safety record ever. You know what I mean? More people, sadly, die from forklift incidents every year in the UK than drones have in the past 21 years. General aviation.
Coconut-related deaths every year than sharks.
Yeah.
And
more people die from swimming, I'm afraid. Bruce, don't go in the water.
Oh, no, I won't. But while I remember that Jetson thing, that is less regulated than a Mavic.
Yeah,
Look
no,
at the
the whole
potential for death
thing, isn't it?
It's like, seriously, it shows you this whole claim that it's about safety is utter crap. And this whole claim that it's okay for people to fly these 250-pound craft because they've got skin in the game. We know that's not true either. No, these people just need to be regularly and continuously called on this misinformation, this deceit. And I have a plan. Don't worry, it's coming.
You have a plan. So Cunning, you could put a tail on it and call it a fox?
Yeah, you could.
Is that the very one? Yeah, no, it's nonsense. Our regulator here is also getting a bit fruity, shall we say? And
in response to FPV pilot, yes, you'll see in the next video I'm doing, I have its multi-step plan. And I think the only future for the hobby is to restore some of the protection that was previously offered by things like Section 336 in the USA. And I've come up with a plan where we can bring the public in on this and the media in on this and push the politicians into a corner, because what most people don't realize, I'm quick to condemn the FAA and the CIA, but what most people forget is that they're doing what they've been directed to do by politicians. They are the slaves of the political things. I mean, the FAA's Reauthorization Act required them to introduce remote ID, whether we like it or not. The fact that they didn't introduce it in a good way is still down to them. The fact they're lying about things is still down to them. But ultimately, the politicians are driving this. And so we need to bring this right back into the lap of the politicians, because the FAA, the CIA, they alone cannot change what they're told to do. The politicians must be held accountable, and I have a plan.
Yeah, well, our regulator is getting a bit fruity with our pers again at the minute, and we're not long out of, just half an hour before we started this, we came out of another one of our mandated power cuts that we get in, another 3 hours with no power at different times of the day, and it's meaning our air traffic navigation services are beginning to fall apart, along with a load of other infrastructures beginning to fall apart, because it's not coping with being powered on, powered off, or it just isn't there. It just isn't there. So it's making quite an impact. Well, not much, because no one ever used them anyway, but a little bit of an impact on the bigger picture air safety. And they're not addressing that. But yet they're finding time to prod the small size of the inside of the industry. So it's what's good for the goose is good for the gander, or something like that, isn't it? The phrase. There need to be some reality checks everywhere. And if you want to look for reality checks, don't forget Airprops Reality Check. A very good website.
Politicians get enough lobbying money; they don't need to cash their reality check.
Yeah, that's true. VC funded cell phone folks. Funny enough, I got invited to a 5G conference today. I said, "You don't want me." Burn them
down! I say
exactly. So why do I get invited to that? Well, that'd be.
Don't we need 5G to fly all drones?
We do need 5G. We need.
Have you had 5G vaccination though? I mean, I've been vaccinated against the COVID, but not against the 5G yet.
No, I got the total upgrade system when I was. Total upgrade, perfect now.
What was I going to say? Can't have been important. I know what I was going to say. So, what other news have we heard? Because it really is. It is a slash old week.
It's been really quiet. It's just there's nothing much going on.
The sign of a maturing industry.
It probably is, isn't it? Though, to a certain extent. If
I remember the same thing. I was deeply involved in computers during the microcomputer revolution, and then everything got quiet and boring because it was people actually just getting down to doing business and not rolling out all the fanfare. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. It's just, well, okay, we'll just get on and do it now. And then things just got quiet and boring.
I brought this comment back for Patrick. Even the shows are dying down, which is great. It's good. It's about time.
Well, there was a drone show a couple of weeks ago in the UK, wasn't there?
Yeah, the London one I didn't go. That's the one I've gone to every year, but I didn't go this year.
Yeah, well, I know someone that had this trade stand there, and they said because they were showing, they did quite well. They did all right. They said if you went for a walkabout, it wasn't that big. It's not once as big as the shows before.
Did they cover the cost of the trade stand?
Oh yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
good. That's always a win. Yeah.
They've rebooked for next year. I know that much. So
yeah, and Patrick, just to quickly go, that oil and gas. Yeah, he's at that oil and gas, and that's exactly what he said as well. That's in fact what started that conversation about the show. So Jesper's desperately wanted to show us AI flying in your PM. So let's see if we can get that up here somewhere before we go. Let me go back up and see what that was. Somebody whistled or something now while I try and.
But since EVs have arrived, isn't oil and gas a bust anyway? Because in the UK, you're going to have to get rid of your gas boilers and put in heat pumps that'll freeze you during the winter. It's so it's natural that any conference called oil and gas is going to be a bust.
It is a little bit. It's
hardly surprising, is it?
We need fracking drones. Fracking drones would be the way to go.
Drones that do fracking for you, yeah. They land and then drill down into the ground and then extract the oil.
Mine often do, actually.
I have one of those newfangled.
They just don't do the landing bit; they just drill themselves in.
I have one of those newfangled things that tells you how much power you're using.
Yeah, you got a smart meter, haven't you?
Yes. I had it installed because I'm on Octopus Go. It seems to work all right. Doesn't work half the day though because the solar panels tend to wipe it out.
Yeah, I've got one of those. So Jesper's trying to desperately tell us about Fleetonomy AI demonstrates autonomous delivery apply. So I'll drop this. I'll put and we finished. So because that's what I'm supposed to do, isn't it? So Thales Squadnet radios, okay. I'll put that in there, and you can read it all there. Because I think I am definitely running out of things to say. So,
did you see Turkey turn one of their target drones into a cruise missile?
They're getting quite into selling their military hardware to anyone that'll have it, aren't they? It's arriving. Various examples of Turkish gear is beginning to land, pun intended, in Africa now.
They're delivering it for free to their enemies.
Well, it's causing issues, that's for sure. And funny enough, oil and gas is one of the areas that has problems in Africa at the minute. There's a little war going on top of Mozambique at the moment involving it. So yeah, those things are being used. Not quite sure why they're being allowed to be quite so free with their sales. That's where I wanted to go with that. Don't know why.
It has been. Things are in a weird phase now, aren't they? Because we are seeing, you're not seeing much development, and what development I think was happening is delayed because no one can get chips, no one can get anything. I think what we're seeing from DJI is like 3 years work. Let's be realistic. What they've pushed out for 3 years has been very little, really. Toy drones, and they have been toy drones for the most part. So we're starting to see some of the big boy stuff a bit more now. From anyone else, Autel have had to pivot because of chipset issues. Parrot, will this Anafi AI ever even launch at this moment in time is unknown. It's still not out there, is
they
it?
put their training provider in place today for North America, or a training provider. But again, I'm reliably told, but they won't tell me the number, that the price of it is astronomical. And
I still can't help say it looks terrible.
Yeah,
even the quality is horrendous. If this is being aimed at a professional product, then that team needs a talking to, because it looks like you're putting it in the window of an Apple store.
Yeah, but American gangster rappers have always got lots of money from the drug deals. I'll buy them because they look really cool to hang around their neck with all the gold bling.
And I am disappointed in Parrot for the way they've gone with it, the way it looks. It didn't need to look like that at all. I don't mean the function. I don't mean the rotating camera. Why is it not solid grey A bit more looking.
There would have been meetings. There would have been meetings and discussions.
They should have got camera conspiracies in on it. He would have sorted them.
Yeah,
maybe it was his Leah Sidhu that did all the design part of it, the Bond girl. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it's in. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it could have made a guest appearance in the Bond movie and didn't.
It looks like it was designed by Johnny Ive.
I don't really know what that means.
That
I'm just
was the former designer of Apple.
Yeah.
Oh yes, that's right.
So it looks
style over function.
And the remote is the biggest point on that.
Well, it comes in a lovely makeup case, so I don't know.
It looks like something Walkera. It looks like something Walkera would have made about 4 or 5 years ago.
That's a
seriously. I've got Walkera goggles with gold bling, and I've got Walkera transmitters. They got gold bling on them, and it looks so much like it. And it's all that sort of smooth, shiny white.
Louis not going to be happy with us at all.
No, Louis not going to be happy.
He's not here. It doesn't matter. You think he watches it? He doesn't watch this.
No, the only person we know that's actually got one. Oh, did I say that out loud? Oh gosh. Oops. Yeah.
And he puts newspaper in the bottom of its cage.
Yes, exactly. Look, if it's super expensive, it doesn't really matter if it does what. For instance,
they'll just give you another one. There is that argument of we'll just keep giving you new ones. Yeah.
But if it works well, so someone like Louis could use it for his grown-up real job, then it doesn't really matter if it's super expensive, if it's that good. But it's got to be that good to be super expensive. And really the advantage would be travel, wouldn't it? I mean, that's the trouble with all the big gear. You just can't take it anywhere. I see someone's looking for M300 pilots here in our South African Facebook drone pilots group, and I wonder if it's for Louis. So, I wonder, because I know he sent some down here recently. Anyway, shots fired. Yes, it was shots fired. That was Bruce's fault, not mine. It's not like that. What else do we see? Going once, going twice. Right, that's it. Thank you very much. Short one tonight because the news hasn't really happened. So wherever you are, dear viewer, look after yourselves. I see you complaining about fuel. We're also going up to 20 rand a litre, which is a huge amount here. We'll see you again next week, 2100 GMT. Wear a mask. Look after yourselves. Take care. Bye-bye. Cheers for now.